Good morning and happy Friday. Actually, it's almost good afternoon. I'm a little late. Been short on devotions this week, but today Lauren and I had the privilege to sit in the sanctuary and watch the memorial service for Dr. Ravi Zacharias. I've quoted him before. It's been a blessing in my life to be able to be influenced by him and his ministry. But as we watched the service, we saw just a glimpse into the influence that man had, that God used him all over the world. The impact on the kingdom, on God's word, on here on earth, will probably never truly be known. But he was definitely one of those. God has separated men all throughout history to use and to use up for his will and his sake. And they do that willingly. And Ravi Zacharias was one of those. He literally poured himself out as a drink offering in his lifetime. And again, his influence has impacted who knows when, how many people. But personally in my life, it made me think about those who have introduced me to Ravi Zacharias and helped bring me up in ministry. And I think back to those men, whether they know it or not, the influence that they had on my life as God put them in my life to get to this point. Our pastor, Curry Creek in Bernie, Texas, John, as his love, you all have heard me probably talk about him in sermons before, and he's just a common guy from New Braunfels, Texas, and Aggie, A&M Aggie, a jock, and the big old kid, which makes him, in my mind, makes him really wonderful and relatable. We were introduced to him at a time when Lauren and I were both not questioning faith, but as we were continuing to try to move into ministry, it was just the time we were unsure of where that was going to lead. And it was through God putting John in our lives and influencing us in that way that Lauren and I both introduced to Ravi Zacharias and apologetics, because John was very passionate for Christ and he was very passionate for apologetics. And in attending Curry Creek, we also got to introduce to wonderful men. My best friend, Steve Balthrop, who God put in my life, has helped me to grow and helped re-spark an interest in reading and history and the art of being a gentleman and the art of chivalry and things like that. And he brought those, and we have a commonality together in that. And he's helped to influence me and bring me through a lot of hard times in my life, through ministry and through my walk with Christ. Colonel Mills, who was a infantry combat Marine officer, he retired from the Marine Corps. He never really was a colonel. He retired a major, but was up to be a lieutenant colonel, but I just call him Colonel. And the influence that he had on my life is you saw the discipline, the love for Christ, but you saw the gentle discipline that he had in him as a top officer would have had, and the respect he had for other people and the dignity that he gave other people he was around, and the influence he had on me that way. I think of Doug, little Doug, the professor, who I just love dearly and miss dearly as well. He, again, a man who had a love for history and a love for apologetics and a love for Christ, and in his own way, his own little Dougisms, we called them. These bits of wisdom that he would throw out, they were just as profound but just as silly as you could come up with, and that described Doug to a T. He was very profound but silly as he could be at the same time, but that was his character and that was how God made him. And the influence through that he had on me, I just loved it, because he was always entertaining and a joy to be around. Bill Lee, who was the antithesis, so to speak, to Doug. They were good friends, they were close, but they were like Mutt and Jeff, man. They were just fun to be together. But his love for knowledge and his love for Christ and his love for missions was an influence to me as well. Tom Morton, who passed away, first sergeant in the Marine Corps, who had a deep love for Christ, and a recovering alcoholic at that, but had a deep love for Christ. And through his cancer and through his suffering, always had a happy face and always had an interest in the love to God that you could see. He didn't have to say it, but it just irradiated out of him. And I was grateful that God put him in my life to give me a picture of strength, of Christian strength. I'm grateful for Kenneth. I was privileged to know Kenneth, his son, his family. Kenneth was a bull of a man, not very tall, but just built like a brick house. He was German, down there in Comfort, just stout as he could be. Very wise. It was an honor. I looked up to him not only as a ranchman, but as a mentor and a friend, and always had the privilege to work with him, for him, and by him on many occasions. But it was also a privilege to be a part of the last 5 years of his life, as cancer slowly took his life away. But he always showed me endurance and wisdom. But it made my heart glad at his service. One of the pictures they showed during the service was him and his family at Amanda Falls, and him being baptized with his grandchildren. And that always warmed my heart to know that he, this bull of a man, this stubborn German of a man, but wise, humbled himself and gave him life to Christ before cancer took his life. And that always made my heart good and always gave me something to look up to. Again, a man who had endurance. But even the bull, hard-headed, stubborn, four-cornered man that he was, humbled himself to Christ. And I think especially my good friend Tom. Tom has been an influence. He's a secular influence in my life. The best way to describe Tom as my father figure, grandfather figure, and dirty old uncle and best friend all rolled up into one. He is a skeptic. Always has been. He says his name is true to who he is, the Doubting Thomas. But I kind of agree with Dr. Ravi Zacharias, not a doubting Thomas, but a questioning Thomas. Tom's influence on my life, he always pushed me to think. He would ask questions that would push me to find answers. And he drove me into finding knowledge. And for that, I am always forever grateful. And I know that in Tom's life, though he is probably the hardest skeptic, most stubborn skeptic I have personally been around, I know that in my heart of hearts and in my spirit somewhere that God has been working on that man's heart for a very long time. I pray that Tom humbles himself. And then Tom realizes that it's not about the knowledge, but it's about the relationship. And I love Tom because he pushed me so hard to find those answers and to find that knowledge. God puts people in our lives to help draw us to him through influences. We have a deeper relationship through Christ, to Christ. But God puts people in our lives to help us draw closer to him. Not just pastors, not just church elders, but people who have a genuine love and desire to know Christ better. And they share that with all of us. I hope everyone who is watching this has somebody like that in their lives. Y'all be blessed. Have a great and wonderful weekend. For all intents and purposes, church is open and we're wide open. So come and join us at 10:30 Sunday morning. I look forward to seeing you. Y'all be blessed. Love each and every one of you. And I hope to see you there.